Greetings, everybody, from Odinshof District. I'm Githia Sheila McNallen. We're waiting for our Altaria Gothi to join us, and I'm sure he will in a bit. But we just want to say we're very excited to be given the first opportunity to represent a Hof district. We are out here west of the Rocky Mountains. It actually includes the Rocky Mountains, but pretty much west of the peaks, the ridge, all the way out to Australia, to Alaska, New Zealand, Alberta, British Columbia, plus everything on the western side of the US and Hawaii. So just know that we handle a very large region, the largest one there is. And we don't have the concentration of people, as you can imagine, that they have in other districts. So our folk builders work very, very hard at what they do. And as I said, I'm Sheila McNallen here in Odinshof region, right here about an hour, a little over an hour from Odinshof itself in California. But I am going to go ahead and have some introductions made with the folk builders who are here, and they can kind of tell you a bit who they are and where they live. And we can just start there and see who gets added in the coming minutes. Let's start over here with Kyle.
Hey everyone, I'm folk builder Kyle Reeder. I'm in Idaho. It's great to be on here tonight. I look forward to answering everybody's questions and having fun. Thank
you very much. And we're going to go to Tyler, and we'll swing around to our Altaria Gothi because I'm sure he's got things he'll want to say right off the bat. So Tyler?
Oh, well doing, everyone. I'm folk builder Tyler Heinlein out of Montana. Eastern Montana, we're getting ready for First Harvest Feast, and we got a lot going on in our area, so looking forward to answering all those questions.
Well, great. And of course, these are oathed folk builders who are on here tonight. We also have apprentices, but we're happy to have some of ours. Unfortunately, not everybody will be on tonight, but we're now going to Ryan Skinner.
Ryan, you're muted.
No. Can you all hear me now?
Oh, yeah. And I muted myself. Yeah, Ryan, go ahead.
I'm having some technical issues. I apologize. I'll be right back.
Sierra?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm Sierra Chapman. I am a folk builder from Sacramento, California. I am Odinshof historian. I am a folk builder, and I help co-op on the Adopt a Highway we have.
Excellent. Thank you. So this is who's with us tonight, but we are, of course, honored to have our Altaria Gothi, Matthew Flavel, here as well. Matt, why don't you go ahead and take over at this point?
Thank you, Sheila. I'm sorry, guys. I was running a little bit late today. Aubrey is especially needy today for some reason. Not quite sure what it is, but I appreciate you taking over and getting us started. As you all know by now, this is a special edition to where we are talking to the people that allow Óðinshof District to function. These are all, well, this is a selection of the oathed leadership that we have in that district. For you guys that may not know, and I don't know if this happened at the top of the show, and I apologize if I'm being redundant. Nick, I don't know if you've got the graphic or not, but when you do, if you could show folks graphically what all Óðinshof District entails, because when we talk about it, I don't know if everybody knows. So this is the portions of Odinshof that are in the United States. And to be fair, that's the vast majority of our Óðinshof District members. But it also includes Western Canada, and this only sort of in the United States. This doesn't, also in Odinshof is Alaska and Hawaii. But it also has Western Canada and Australia and New Zealand. So those folks are part of our Odinshof family as well. As you can see, it's about a third of the country, and when you add in just landmass wise Alaska, it's probably about half the country. But it's also a part of the country that's spread out over greater distances than some of the other parts. So I think that some of that's reflected in the unique challenges of folk building in the district, and I'm sure folks will be able to talk to you guys a little bit about that tonight. So yeah, focus of the show is not just on the Hof, it's on the district and what we've got going on and what that looks like and how things are going, how things have gone, and any plans for the future. Starting off, we have, as always, Ronald Blake with his generous donations, $50 towards the steeple at Baldershof and $45 to help the folks in South Africa. We appreciate that very much, Ronald. Thank you so much. Also, $100 from Chris Lucat to pay off Njordshof. So we're working on paying off Njordshof. I keep kind of pounding the drum, but you guys keep answering the call with amazing generosity. We've made a lot of progress. So we are, yeah, and as of now, that figure's old. So we $100 less than is indicated on that figure. So for folks that are curious, I don't know if this $100 takes us there, but we're about 65.9% paid off. And this is, one, it being the most expensive Hof we've had to date, and two, us having it for only 23 months now. We've paid off an enormous amount of money in that time due to you guys' generosity. And yeah, so the faster we get that done, so people that may or may not know, that is the first step towards us getting our next Hof, which will be First Hof. That's looking like it will be either in Eastern Ohio or Western Pennsylvania. And yeah, first thing we got to check off that list is getting the debt we have to Njordshof paid off. So we really appreciate you guys' generosity on that. Thank you so much. Please, if you're hearing this, like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your family, shout it from the rooftops. Best thing we have is the most effective tool we have right now outside of the goodwill and blessings of our gods is word of mouth. A lot of avenues are closed to us that would otherwise be open just because of the political climate that we are in at the moment. So we really rely on folks, getting the word out. And so, yeah, please share it around with folks that you think would benefit from it. Other stuff, please join me next week. So like a week and a half from today in Jackson County, Tennessee at Sigerheim for Sigerbloat, the second Sigerbloat at Sigerheim. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be amazing. It's an absolutely magical place. It's going to be, I don't know, the promise of so many dreams are in play there. It's going to be quite amazing as the years progress, and the more time we spend there, the more time we spend in ritual there, the more imbued with spiritual might, with holiness, the place becomes, and it becomes even that much more powerful. So we look forward to celebrating Sigerbloat there, doing bloat to Tyr. Those who are not familiar, Lord Tyr will have his Hof at Sigerheim. That will be the Hof that follows First Hof in our order of getting Hofs. So we got a lot of really big things we want to do there. We would love to see you guys there and have you guys be part of, this very early stage of developing that amazing property. So if you're interested, please get your tickets. I'd love to see you guys there. If you're a member, get a hold of a folk builder. They'll get you set up. If you are not a member, also get a hold of a folk builder. They'll get you set up. We would love to see you out there. And the following month, we are going to celebrate Freyfaxi at Baldershof, and that's at Baldershof in Murdoch, Minnesota. So if you can make that, we'd love to see you there. I'll be there. My family will be there. We'll be very excited to show off the absolutely beautiful Hof that they put so much work into, and celebrate Freyfaxi and get time with our folks. I'd love to meet you guys there if we can do that. I think that's what we've got at the top of the show. If I'm picking up what Sheila's laying down, she was getting everybody introduced. I think for a couple of you guys, it is your first time on the program, so I want to kind of ask some things that we usually ask people on their first time on the show. We got Ryan. He was having the technical difficulties. He looks like he is, I don't know, operating a jet or something because he's got his headgear on. Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you found, I don't know, how you came to Asatru and how you found the Asatru Folk Assembly.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Ryan Skinner. I'm a folk builder out of Northern California, about an hour and a half away from Odinshof. I've been a member of the AFA since 2017. It was quite the journey. I found videos of Matt and Steve McNallen on YouTube, kind of drew me into the folkish state of mind and brought me home. So I've been with you guys loyally since.
Well, we definitely appreciate you, and it's great to have you. And it's been nice to watch the course your life has taken in that period of time. And you are newly oathed as a folk builder as of almost a month now. Yeah, a month now. We're right close. We're either side of a month ago. So speaking of that, there's another gentleman who was in front of Odin's altar with you taking that oath, also a newly oathed folk builder in the Odinshof district. Kyle, tell folks a little bit about yourself. Tell them how you came to Asatru and how you found the Asatru Folk Assembly and your PRs on the big three lifts.
Well, like I said, my name is Kyle Reeder, folk builder here in Idaho, in the southeast corner, pretty close to Utah, Wyoming, Montana. I came to Asatru actually through my wife. She was Wiccan in high school, and I was like, well, I want to understand what she's doing. And so I kind of just started researching what she was doing. We got in with a Druid pagan group here in town, and I was like, this kind of feels right, but not quite. So I started researching more of my ancestral religious beliefs, what they would have believed, and that's what initially led me to Asatru in and of itself. I found the AFA. So I joined the AFA in 2020. I followed them online from like 2017, 2018. Just kind of lurked in the background for a little bit. Just wasn't ready to pull that trigger. And then just trying to raise kids in the world we're in now just is what really made me finally pull it. And I don't know why it took me so long, because I haven't been happier. But I guess PRs, the big three lifts. Do you want meat PRs or gym PRs? Because they're different.
All right, we'll take your word for it. Gym PRs.
So gym PRs right now, I've got a 750 squat for a double, so it's 2 reps. 562 to a one board. To my chest, it's 550, and then I've got a 600-pound deadlift.
That geared?
Yeah, that's all competing in single ply powerlifting gear.
All right. No, this guy is immensely strong. If you guys haven't seen him or seen any of his videos, but it's been really cool to watch.
Yeah, I love it. It is what keeps me going besides the AFA.
All right. Well, we're glad that you found us. We're glad that you're here, and we're glad that you're putting in work folk building for us. And then I believe this is your first time on the program as well, Tyler. Is that correct?
No, it's not. We were on last year right after First Harvest Feast.
That's right. Tyler's old news. So yeah, there's Tyler. He's here to join us.
I've gotten to the feast twice though, so it's a good thing.
There you go. All right. I want to say kind of one thing about Tyler while he's here and brag on him a little bit. For as long as I have been in the Asatru Folk Assembly, or at least as long as I've been attending things, so I don't know, 15 years or so, people have been talking about, we should get a bus and then we could bring a whole bunch of members down to Midsummer. I've heard that dozens of times easily. But there's one guy that said, hey, we should do that. And then 2 weeks later, he's got a bus and he's trying to load people up and get it figured. And, a couple weeks after that, he shows up with a bus full of people that wouldn't have otherwise been able to make it to Midsummer. And that's Tyler. So he is a man of follow through. Also a homesteader. Again, in the groups that we travel in, there's a whole lot of people in mom's couch in a urban apartment building that talk a real big game about slapping hogs and raising barns and the homestead life. I've seen very little homesteading manifest, but Tyler's out there doing it and making it happen. So Tyler says he's going to do something. He does it. I appreciate that. Looking over there in the meantime, as if he were not generous enough, Ronald Blake has donated $50 towards paying off Óðinshof. Thank you so much, Ronald. We really, really appreciate it. So I guess a good place to start with, folks, everyone you see on the screen here was at Midsummer. Just like I was going over about a month ago. So last month, everybody was at Midsummer. If you guys could maybe go around and tell us a little bit about Midsummer with the eye to maybe an audience that's never attended an AFA event, certainly that's never attended Midsummer, or that's never been to Odinshof. So for somebody who's coming into this completely fresh, wondered what that's like, what that might be about, what they might experience if they want to join us for Midsummer next year. Sheila. Sheila, you are muted.
Here we go. All right, folks. Yeah, well, I've done many, many Midsummers, going clear back to like 2009 when we began here in California, as making it our official event of the year. It had been winter nights prior to that. It became Midsummer around 2009. But this was the best. This was the best overall from my vantage point. For one thing, I totally enjoyed from beginning to end. It was very heartfelt. We always say we're family. Well, this did feel like family. We did not have a lot of guests. We didn't have looky-loos. We didn't have anybody like that. Everybody who came was a member of the AFA, came to enjoy the hospitality of our Hof and to meet others. Almost all our folk builders were there except Ryan Harlan, who couldn't be on because he couldn't be there because of work and family obligations. But everybody else was there, and it was beautiful. It was so well prepared by our Hof steward, Daniel Odom, and his team of fellows who would come in for work weekends. And just everything was prepped so beautifully. Sierra did meals for us with the help of mostly Tyler's guys from the Pacific Northwest were in there, and you've seen pictures probably in that video. But it was beautiful. It was just, we got everything in there that we hoped to. The children did a wonderful children's stumble. I was a bit busy, but I believe it was Kyle and Sierra who made that happen. And it was charming, and the parents loved it, and the kids did 3 rounds. And there were a lot of mommies that were toasted because children do that. Who's your favorite goddess? Mommy, and we're working on that. But the little toddlers, that's who's important in their lives. It was a family event from beginning to end, and that is what we always want it to be. I always say it feels like a retreat, and this one was a spiritual retreat, and we hope that you guys can come out next year. I'm going to let other people add their comments, their recollections, and certainly having the bus there was a first, and it was delightful having so many people from the Northwest come. So,
Kyle, I'm just kind of going in the order that we're on my screen here. Tell us a little bit about your experience at Midsummer and kind of, from your perspective, what you enjoyed and what folks might encounter who've never been to an AFA event or an event at Odinshof.
Going to Midsummer at Odinshof was like going home. You're instantly welcome the second you walk through the door. You're around people that are just like you, think the same way you do. There's little kids running everywhere. It's the reason why we joined, is that community, and it is all there. Every last bit of it. There's something to do for everybody. There's tons and tons of people to talk to. There's games going on. This year there's people out there setting up chessboards, playing chess in the yard. Oh geez, there's so much. There's presentations that go on. I can't get over how much it's family. It's the best family you could ever be around. There's things for your kids, like Sheila was saying. Kids Stumble is amazing. There's a kids play place or a kids play area, like a playhouse and stuff for little ones. I've got 3 kids, and I think they just ran crazy all 3 days we were there and just had a blast. They're still talking about it, asking when do we get to go back.
Awesome. Well, I am certainly glad that you felt that way and that was your experience. It's interesting, and I've gone to every Midsummer since 2010. 2010 was the first year I went. I went precisely because Sheila made a slideshow of 2009, which I wish I could find. Found the one from 2010, but man, I was kicking myself. I should have gone, thought about going, didn't go, and then I saw the slideshow and everything I missed, and been going ever since. But when you first go, so many of us have that feeling that it's like coming home, that it's instantly a feeling of family and togetherness, and it's just such a moving experience. But those of us who've done it for a long time, there's a little bit of distance between when it's brand new and when it's something that we're more accustomed to, and some of the what maybe a new person's experience is different than how we experience after we've been involved for a long time. So it's really great to hear from people that maybe this is their first time and they see something a little different. So I mentioned the man with the bus from the Northwest. Before I do, though, Sheila talked about the kitchen and everybody in there working very hard to take care of all us and feed everybody, because it's pretty much constant. As soon as we're done cleaning up for breakfast, it's time to start lunch, and that's the way between each of the meals, except for maybe in the middle of the night. That said, apprentice folk builder Nick Gunn of Washington could not get that guy to stop helping out this last Midsummer. There was not a time, I really can't think of a time that I saw him not moving something for somebody, bringing somebody something, doing dishes, helping out with the meals, helping out with the trash, helping out with every possible thing. Nick's over in Spokane. If you find yourself in northern Idaho or in eastern Washington, you would do yourself well to get in contact with him. We'll have contact information and stuff later in the program. It's always available on the website. I think this is a good time as any to plug Odinshof.org. That's the Hof district specific website. It's going to have calendar of events. It's also going to have, all the contacts and people to get a hold of if you find yourself in that area or traveling through that area, or whatever your situation might be. That's where you want to go. Tyler, can you tell us a little bit about your experience at Midsummer? with an eye towards somebody who hasn't been before?
Yeah, absolutely. So the journey was interesting to say the least. It was a 30-hour drive with 35-hour walk. I'm sure Nick would have been willing to drive with me, but I was the only one with the experience to run the larger vehicle, so I did it in one shot. It was quite the journey, but what Nick did not have in driving skills, he made up in everything else. I know you just complimented the guy, but I gotta give him his due. He was my right hand that entire time. Anything that needed to be done, he was there. And just like at the Hof, I couldn't get him to stop working. When we pulled in the gas station, this dude's climbing up on the hood to get the windshield every single time, because that's what he does. So I got to travel down with a bunch of really good folk from my area, sang songs, played stupid highway games the entire way. Really good experience. And we talked about what we thought the Hof might be like. Most everyone on that bus hadn't been there. I don't know if I can say that no one on the bus had been to Odinshof, but I'm pretty sure we were close to having an entire bus of first timers. And we discussed, whether it was going to be as rural as they said, whether it was going to be as big as they said. And when we got there, the big takeaway was that it was more real than what they said. And everyone talks a good game about Odinshof, but I don't think anyone has the skills to capture what Odinshof is like. There's something about it when you get yourself into the main hall 3 a.m. and I'm sure sleep deprivation played a little bit into this, but I don't want to give it too much credit. You get there and this giant mural of Odin sits before you. You walk up and what you feel is power. There's a pulsing to the room. And I'm not one to lean into things without a good deal of skepticism. But when you get there, all thoughts of skepticism disappear. It is the Hof of the Harion Father. It is his hall. And if you haven't been there, you can understand it conceptually, but you won't understand it inside. And that was just in the first 5 minutes. When you actually get to meet with the people, you get to see how it runs. You start to understand Odinshof is an organism in and of itself. It is a combination of hard work with the people that are local. It's a combination of the people there, the events done, the bloats, the food, the music, because it had live music, which is not something most events can say. It all kind of coalesces into an event that's very memorable. My 2-year-old's been getting up on a 5-gallon bucket, and if you homestead, you got a lot of those. So she drags one out, puts it right in the middle of wherever we're trying to do something because she's 2 and doesn't know any better. She climbs up there and she starts pontificating to us. It starts with either hail the ancestors or hail the gods. And then it usually devolves into hail Eowyn, her little sister, or hail Lammy, her little stuffed animal, or hail mommy. But it's a litany. She goes through all 3. Hail the gods, hail the ancestors, then hail whatever's on her mind. And she gets down, and she's got her little arms up when she does it. And if that's not what you don't know Odinshof for, I don't know what is.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Ryan, what do you have to share or to add about Midsummer this year?
Well, I definitely didn't have the same drive that Tyler had with his crew. But the Friday leading up to it, I drove in from the coast. I was spending some time with family out near Eureka, California. That morning we drove in. I dropped my wife and kids off at home and beeline straight to the Hof on Friday. And from the minute I got there, people were buzzing and getting things done, interacting. There was a lot of camaraderie, a lot more calm than the other years I've seen, a lot more genuineness than other years I've seen. Every instance where something needed to happen, there was a crew there to make it happen. Anyone that asked for help got it. Anybody that was looking for help was put to work. Everything that could have gone right did, and everything that even to the point where we had a leadership meeting out front, and someone from our our community who had some food issues, a food emergency, knew that we had a food pantry service available, came, saw that there was vehicles there, and he came and asked for food. He said, "This is a very difficult time for me. It's kind of embarrassing," but came and took advantage of the services that we have available, even people from our community value, and just having that camaraderie all around was magical. So going into Odinshof, you'll notice first thing is that the hall is wide open. There's a stage off to the left hand side. When you walk through the double doors, there's tables set out, and in the far wall there's a mural toad, and everything between your first steps in to Odin's mural is nothing but interaction. It, like, people wanting to get to know each other, helping each other out, and telling life stories. And it was great. Every step that you take in, every stride that you make through that hall, you can feel the energy, you can feel the presence of the higher powers. Everything that we did, all the rituals that we partook in, had a great resonance to it. And yeah, it was great. I fell asleep that night. I was going to pitch my tent, but it was already 11 o'clock at night. I was like, okay, I don't want to set this up in the middle of the night. I just laid my mattress, air mattress, out in the back of my truck bed and slept under the stars. And it was perfect weather. It was like 70 degrees, and it was something great. It was full night's sleep, wake up, start the next day. Everything happened again. And having that for 3 days in a row for Midsummer was great. And on Saturday, I took my oath with my brother Kyle over here. Great guy. And I can't help but look forward to the future with the quality of the people that we have and everything that we have going on. It's the future is pretty bright. And that's all I have to say.
All right. And joining us at last, I think after getting settled with some technical stuff, we have got Sierra.
Hello.
Sierra, what do you got to say to folks about your experience at Midsummer this year? And what I've been telling everybody is, assuming you're talking to an audience of people that may never have been to an AFA event or been to a Hof.
So I think like a good way to kind of speak about the power that you feel at the Hof is you have to understand, like, that land is very, very old. I mean, obviously the land's been there since the world has been created, but in a grand scheme of things, that town was founded in 1808. So that's had a lot of history in that time that has happened in that area. It was a little mining town, right? And then the Hof itself was put up in 1956 as a grange hall where the community came and they hosted events. They've been putting their frith into the building. They've been building their bonds at that building. So all these years leading up to us getting the Hof, there's been bonds being built there that you can feel. You can feel the energy there. It's always been a place of like welcoming and love. So when we inherited the Hof, when we purchased it and we took it under our control and we started putting our love and our frith and bringing the power of the gods there, it just exemplified everything. And I would say, like, so for those who have never been to the Hof, when you drive, you're going down Highway 20 and you take a left onto Marysville Road. And when you're on Marysville Road, that is the main road that you're on until you hook a left and you go down LaPorte to Port. And it's probably about a good 20, 25 mile stretch. And as soon as you hit that, there's no service. And as you're driving, there's this one curve that you hit. And on the left-hand side, it's this big open green pasture. And every single person that I drive up to the Hof, because I live in Sacramento, so I like to pick people up from the airport. Every single person, the moment we hit that spot, says they can feel some sort of spiritual power charging them. They're like, whoa, like this just
I feel so excited. I can't explain it. I'm excited to get to the Hof. It's like we're getting close. And then you get to the Hof. And the moment you get to the Hof, there's at least 3 people right there going, hey, welcome. How are you doing? Give me a hug. Hi, how are you? Like as if it's a family reunion, as if I've known you for the past 20 years. And, I've never met probably, I'd say 30 to 40% of the people that come to Midsummer's. But the moment they're there, they're family. And I'm giving them hugs and I'm pulling them in. And I'm like, hey, how can I help you? What do you need? Just making it feel like home. And as everyone says, when you walk in and you step into those halls, the floors are the original flooring. 1 second. I apologize. I have a crying baby. But those original floors that are scratched up with years of dancing and Hof events and community events, you can feel it, like I said, kind of pulsing through you. I will have to come back.
Okay, no worries. That happens. That's why that's a version of why I was late to the program today. So I can't be too picky on it. Tyler disappeared also. That's fine. We'll get to it. Something else, and we'll certainly take questions from everybody in the audience. But in the meantime, one thing I'd like folks who are listening to this that may not be, close to, and just in case anybody's not aware, Odinshof is in Brownsville, California. That's in Yuba County in Northern California, in kind of the foothills of the Sierras. So we've got folks from different places, and I suppose the differentest place we have right now on the screen. Kyle, tell us a little bit about what we've got going on over in Idaho, in southern Idaho.
Sorry, I got a motorcycle driver by my house. Me personally, I've got a moot on the 20th at my home. If any of you guys are interested in coming to that, it would be a nice dinner moot. I'll throw a bunch of food on my smoker, have a big old good party. You can contact me at my email, kreader@runestone.org. In Twin Falls, we have a member that does a weekly run on Saturdays out there that I can also help you get in touch with. And then we are working on getting the folk in Utah together to start being more active and together. Had a couple of them start to come down to Idaho Falls, and I'm trying to get their community to grow for them too. Like I've been starting to get the community here to grow.
Excellent. Tyler has returned. What you drinking, Tyler?
Well, I paid taxes on it, so it's not quite shine.
Okay. All right. Tyler, you are also in a far-flung corner of our district. You are in Montana, and Montana has recently really exploded with activity, and I'd say the last, year and a half, 2 years, maybe at most. Tell folks a little bit about what we've got going on in Montana, if you would.
Yeah, so I think the first thing to understand about Montana is the geography. It's an hour and a half, 2 hours just to get groceries. For me, for most, it's a little less, but you're looking at anywhere from 1 to 4 hours to get anywhere in Montana. It's spread out, not a lot of people. We're outnumbered by cows and deer. It's a good time. But when it comes to getting together as communities, you have to look at it as a state level. And Montana's a lot bigger than people think. It dwarfs a lot of European countries on its own. And it's a challenge to get people together. You have people that are up in the far north on the Highline where it's winter more than it's not. You have people down by Butte and Yellowstone where it's being filled up by out-of-staters and condominiums, and they're getting displaced. You got people in the east where there's plains. You got people in the west where there's forests, and all of these people have different ways of doing things, and they got to come together and put on good events. And the best part is it works, because not only is it a geographically distinct location, it's a location that is built, their ancestors built it. They were pioneers. They were miners. They were gold rush enthusiasts. They were ex-Confederate soldiers to loggers. These are hardy people. And so the 4-hour drive doesn't bother them. In fact, the 12-hour drive from Spokane to Odinshof doesn't bother them either. The big thing we're pushing for next year is we're trying to get every 3 months the entire region together for a smaller event, and we're going to be rotating around the map so that not everyone has to drive as far each time. And of course, we are gearing up for First Harvest Feast. It's the big event we do up there every September. And that's really the things going on in the area right now.
All right. And I'm trying to think of how I want to put it to kind of make it. Sheila, can you tell us the story of the AFA presence in Northern California? When did that start? How did it develop? And what does it look like now?
That's quite a story.
Why him and hot a little bit?
We actually did a video that Steve and I presented at Midsummer this year that I think was quite fun. And of course, we have so many photos. We pulled as many as we could together to basically show what it was like the very early days when there was really not much out there. There was the Ring of Troth, and the Asatru Alliance, and Steve was still in very good terms with Algard Murray. So we knew that would always be something we could do.
What year are we talking? Where about?
We're talking, this is like 93, 94, in that area. That's kind of where I came into the picture. Steve had already kind of restarted the Runestone magazine, but there was no organization that was involved at that point. But he was out there starting to write. And part of the problem that he was seeing for the first time is that the unis were making inroads into the folkish group, and that was actually Asatru Alliance. So Steve stood up for them and said, we've got to do more. And he became very vocal and very well known quickly for presenting the folkish view and saying we need to make sure that people see this as an ethnic religion. It's not for everybody, because every group has its own native ways, and that's what we're trying to promote. Go find your native ways, your indigenous ancestral ways. And anyway, that kind of got it launched. Steve was doing the Runestone. We ended up having, by good fortune, renting a property right in Grass Valley that was 26 acres, and it was ideal. It had old apple orchards. It had a wonderful patio that we would gather, and we created a kindred, because we're talking about, this is early 1990s. Everything had to be done by snail mail. There was no thought of email, and it was too expensive to make phone calls. So that's not what you did back then. Everything was snail mail. And we took over the Elsie Christensen's Odinist Fellowship, where she went to prison and started doing a lot of the prison outreach and prison communication. So there was a lot of that going on, just developing the smallest little events, and 6, 8, 10 people, and starting small. But Steve said, no, we're ready. We're going to do something bigger. And with that, I remember driving one day. I remember where we were, and we used to be the Asatru Folk Assembly. We're not going to bring that back. And I said, we're always talking about the folk. How about the Asatru Folk Assembly? So people always say, I said it has a V. No, it was always folk with an F. It's the way I do it. I wasn't into anything German. And that's how the name came about. And we established it with the state of California, got corporation papers, and then went through a couple of grueling years with the IRS, trying to get the IRS exemption, which we did in 1997. But 94 to 95, we were out there. Steve was promoting the Asatru Folk Assembly out in Althing in Wisconsin and other places we went. And it was great fun. And it grew, but it was always, at our home. We had some wonderful big events at our home. We had one called Gathering of the Tribes, 1999. And it had over 100 people for about 4 days. And we had a perfect place for it. But it was a little on the rough side, not like our events nowadays. It was a very motley crew of people who came from all over and didn't have the best behavior, and there was way too much drinking and all that. But that's the way it was in the early days. We were known for that. We didn't have our sights as high as we do now. We didn't have the high standards that we do now. And yes, we had kids around, but there were not a lot of kids. And there would be sometimes we would go for a long time with very few children at our events. But of course, that has all changed with Asatru, with AFA. And actually, it was 2011 that we had David James was at our Midsummer. It was one of our big Midsummers because we started going to a place called Camp Norga. And that became a place, it was a kind of the general gathering of people all over the country to come out. We had people who would fly out, and we had Matt, and who came from Alaska, and Brad, who came from Florida, and same with Alan, and a lot of our leadership came out for that. And those were nice size events. And we always had music, and we had weddings and all sorts of things like we do now. And it was a beautiful spot. But we had David James there, and David James was an elderly, scholarly type fellow. He knew the Gothic language, I believe it was, and had been a professor, but like many, his politics didn't fit in even back then in the 1960s and 70s, and he could not hold a position at a university. But he was known for his beautiful poetry and I can tell you his handwriting and everything. But he did bloat for us at Midsummer, the Midsummer bloat. And that was the time that he had the ladies take the drinking horn, our big AFA drinking horn, step aside and pour their energy into it, to pour the mead in and speak words over it. And that is the very first time that was used. And I know that it is now a tradition all around the country, all around the world, and has been taken by people who've been AFA and they leave. Well, it's a very powerful ritual that the ladies do. And there's no doubt that we have a lot of children because of it, because we've made it very, we chant basically. We talk over the words and talk over the horn and the mead in the horn, connect with our ancestors. And we've continued to grow. We have beautiful families. We ended up 2015. We had been this time at a camp in Sonoma County at a place called Occidental, and it was owned by the Catholic Church. It was a beautiful camp and a very expensive one. They catered our meals, and we had cool cabins, and we had a midsummer pole. We danced around, all that stuff. It was our 20th anniversary, and we had champagne and cake and all sorts of things that event. But, and this is important because as we were leaving, and it was a beautiful event, 2015, it was our 20th, as I said, 20th anniversary. Steve actually opened up his first box of books of Asatru Native European spirituality. And, but one of our Gothis, Thorgrim Odin, said, hey, you guys, when we leave here, maybe we should go check out this property. A realtor told me that there's this property that is way across the state, but it might be what we're looking at and looking for. And Thorgrim had never given up the hope that we could find a property that would be our Hof. We, for years, had talked about having a Hof and land fund. But sure enough, that's what we did. We had all of our leaders with us that time. We left the camp there after writing a check for about $9,500 for the cost of a 3-day event. And we headed across, and we're wondering if we'd ever find the ideal spot. And sure enough, we did. What it was the old Grange Hall, the Grange Hall that became New Grange Hall and eventually Odinshof. But we arrived there. The realtor let us in, I think. And we walked through this place, and it had the stage, which I've always been into music and things like that. I was like, oh my gosh, having a stage for music, and the big hall, and the kitchen had all the appliances, had all the pots and pans that had ever been used there. I mean, it was ready for us. And with it, we went there, we walked through the backyard, we had mead with us, and everybody who was there said, yeah, this is it. This is doable. The price tag was great for California, considering it was acreage. It happened to be in a little town in a county that none of us knew, but we would get to know it very, very well. And sure enough, we made an oath that day that we would do our best to get it. And I had to scramble for a couple of months in getting funding for it. We did an Indiegogo request for money and raised about $45,000 in, I think, 5 weeks, something like that. And we were able to go ahead and sign the papers. And we have a video that I know that Nick has a link to it. We would like to have you just go in and take a look if you haven't seen it. I created the video with the mind that it was going to be our promotion for the Indiegogo campaign. So those pictures that you see there were taken the very first day we ever saw it. And that you can see is our Odinshof, what is now Odinshof. Back then it was called the Grange Hall. And definitely take a look at the video, because it just showed how the opportunity to come on the 20th anniversary. Steve had just been doing a lot of ritual work 90 days prior to this, and it was just the pieces fit. And again, we thank Thorgrim Odin for being the one to encourage us to go look at this, because we've never looked back, right? That was the first Hof in 2015. We never thought there'd be a second, but sure enough, when Matt became Alsaria Gothi, he kept his sights very high that we would continue getting Hofs. And so we have. And so we have 4 and counting plus Sigerheim. But it was a dream realized that there's no doubt that the gods played a role. It is Odin's Hof. And it should be, because my husband, Steve, has always been very tied to Odin, as you probably know. And it was, I think, his decision that this was going to be the starting place for us to create Hofs all around the world. So, 2015 was amazing. We've done events there ever since. Matt stepped in to start running the AFA in 2016. We stepped away because it had been a lot of years, as you know, 20 years plus, doing everything on our own. And hey, I've got a birthday tomorrow and I'm plenty old. And so I needed some time away myself. And that is what we did. And the AFA has thrived ever since. And I have to say that we're also fortunate to have Matt at the helm, and all of the leadership, including the Witchen and the Gothar and all of our folk builders, who all understand how leadership works and how it has to be a tiered system. You can't just have it be egalitarian and a democratic type thing. We've seen what happens when groups do that. It never works. And it works because Matt has such wonderful management skills and has people with him. It's wonderful that we have Odinshof. And the fact that it ended up being the first Hof named Odin, and I always thought it would be New Grange Hall, because that's what I named it. That wasn't meant to be. The Grange told us, you can't use that word Grange. We own it, like you own New Grange too, or the Grange, whatever. But they said, we've got a trademark. You cannot use the word Grange as New Grange. And sure enough, Matt said, hey, that's okay. We'll come up with a different plan. And it became Odinshof, as it was meant to be from the beginning. So that's a long story, but it's been many years in the making. And I just want to say parts of it have been the same ever since. People who were around in the early days, they still feel they're with the AFA. But we have grown. And as we've grown, we have not lost the heart and the soul and the spirit of what we began with. It's even there. It's more intense. And we encourage everybody, if you're not a member at this point, to just looking in, really think about that. There's nothing that becomes so much of a family as being in the AFA. It's what we all need now, right? This world, people are too disconnected. And join our Hof, join one of the other districts, and know that you've got people there who will always look out for you and help you and teach you and keep you connected to your gods and ancestors and other good folk. That's my story.
All right. Well, since while you were speaking, we are joined by folk builder Ryan Harlan, also in Montana. I think this is your first time on the program. Is that correct, Ryan?
Yeah, that's correct. This is my first
All right.
time being on Victory Never Sleeps.
Cool. Well, welcome. If you could tell folks a little bit about, a little bit about yourself and how you found Asatru and how you came home to the Asatru Folk Assembly.
Well, I've been currently part of the AFA for 10 years now. Originally came to the AFA after a long time of soul searching and looking at things. My family, when they first came to the United States, were Quakers. So part of the Society of Friends, known as Quakers, one of their big tenets is developing a personal relationship with higher powers. And that's always kind of been something that's been big in my family. In more recent years, great-grandfathers, grandfathers and stuff became part of a Christian segment, which is far more extreme. It's what my dad was brought up in, and he made the conscious decision to not bring us up in that church. I will forever be thankful for that. One of the things that I will never forget from my father was giving us the leeway to figure things out for ourselves. At the time that I came home, I was working as a wildland firefighter. I did 20 years in wildland fire, a little bit more in emergency services overall, still currently involved in that profession. The big thing that came home to me was when I was in school, we studied the Greek and Roman myths, a little bit of the Celtic myths, and that always struck a bigger truth to me than any of the other things that I ever learned going to church with family members or anything like that. And it just stuck in the back of my mind. And so eventually I decided to just search it out and see what was going on, and whether I was doing something that hadn't been done by anybody else, I was going to do it. And so I started out just practicing by myself in my backyard, my two dogs looking on. And eventually I came across the Asatru Folk Assembly. Studied the website for a little bit. Back then, the website was not nearly as phenomenal as it is now, but it definitely got the job done. It drove home points to me that told me I was on the right path. I believe Sheila may be able to correct me on this, but I think our first introduction was at Sam's Hofbrau in Sacramento. And it was just a casual meetup. I believe it was myself and Steve and you and a few other people who are no longer with us. And then shortly thereafter, I became a member. And my first actual AFA event was a Midsummer up on the north coast of California. I was born and raised in California. I am currently in the west central side of Montana. But yeah, gold country, the Sierra Nevadas, it's always been home. I miss it very much, but at the same time, I've landed in a place that is almost identical. So I'm very happy about that. But I do miss being very close to Óðinshof and being able to be out there, used to be out there a minimum of once a month, sometimes more, but now we're a few days away. So it's definitely bittersweet, but at the same time, we've built Montana, helped build Montana. Tyler's been building Montana. We've taken a state that had, I think, maybe one or two members, and between the two of us, we've driven it home, and we're building the state up.
Fantastic. I fed your tortoise-in-law today, and he is enjoying the heat. Yeah, Ryan's in-laws live here in Reno, and they've got this massive desert tortoise named Elliot, and I get the chore and privilege of going over and taking care of him when Ryan's in-laws are out of town, and he enjoyed his lettuce and his rehydrated pellets that he eats, and he seems like he's doing all right. So while we got you, Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on in your neck of the woods over in Montana, as far as what's the AFA up to there? I just saw, looks like you guys had a Odinshof just recently that I got the picture of today.
Yeah, so yesterday we went up on top of the Continental Divide, which is where we usually make the trek up to. We live literally right below the Continental Divide. We head up there, and for us, it's a special place. It's literally the dividing point of our country, in which, you know, the water flow diverts. Anything that flows on the west side of the divide goes out to the Pacific, and anything that flows on the east side heads out down towards Louisiana or out towards the Atlantic. So it's a very special place, I think. And we go up there and we try every ninth. We're not always successful. Sometimes weather, especially during the winter months, gets the better of us. We try to get up there and do Odinshof every ninth. Some people are familiar with the Odin World Prayer Day. That's one thing that our kindred has made kind of a point to do, is to take part in that on every ninth. We also gave blow to A. Rudd Mills yesterday, as it was his day of remembrance. We also were getting together without the other half of our kindred, the founding members. They're out currently due to some health issues with a family member. So part of yesterday was also an asking to air for some blessings and some healing for the mother of one of our other kindred members. Outside of that, you know, we've been doing a lot of stuff, trying to get as much done as possible. Rune studies within the kindred. We've been trying to do some get-togethers. We had a camp out for Midsummer. A lot of the kindred was not available to head down to Odinshof for Midsummer, so we decided to do a camp out just amongst ourselves and opened it up to anybody else that may be available but not yet able to go down to Odinshof. It was fairly successful. It was outside of the weather. It actually turned out really, really well. We had to contend with some really, for what may be strange to a lot of people in other areas of the country, summer up here can be pretty hectic. The weather, especially early in the summer, can be pretty, to use a term, but not trying to be, you know, insensitive to anybody, but weather up here is pretty bipolar. It can go from freezing cold to heat to windy. I mean, it's across the board. And, you know, it was all of that. So those who showed up early ended up having to contend with most of that, some snow, some hail, lots of wind and rain. But by the next day, it had dried itself up and everything worked out just fine. The rest of the month, right now, we are looking at potentially getting as much as the kindred as we can to help support Tyler. Tyler's got a pending meetup coming up here, so we're going to try to make down there as many of us as possible. Outside of that, we got to tie in with Tyler and kind of do some more brainstorming for up here. But you know, most of the years up to now has been pretty busy here in the West.
How far apart are you and Tyler by road?
Tyler and I are about, from where I'm at, about 4.5 hours, depending. So he's about 4 hours east of us. And we've got other folks that are, you know, fairly close within, you know, 2.5 to 3 hours to the west as well. We've got Nick Gunn over there in the Washington area, good kindred up there in the Panhandle. We're trying to get everybody linked in and trying to support each other as best as we can.
Excellent. Rachel, if you're still there, I don't think you are, but you said hi over in the comments. Hi, I will see you soon at Sigger Bloat. And Ian, if you're still around, popping in saying hi. Hey, I'm glad you're watching. Yeah, he's saying hi from Texas. So Sierra has come back after the screaming baby emergency, and it looks like she might be feeding said baby. Any chance
no,
we
not
get
feeding said baby, but feeding other baby.
a different baby?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Bjorn's not a baby. Bjorn's like a whole child.
Oh, Bjorn, I didn't know he was the one screaming earlier. That's fine.
Yeah, little girl cried with my son.
Okay, well,
Yes.
I'll try not
so
to judge.
where I was at, you know, there's just a lot of magic in the hall. But for Midsummer specifically, I've been through 4 Midsummers now, cooked for 3 of them, 2 of them, 3 of them, cooked for 3 of them. And I have to say that this was definitely the smoothest Midsummer that we've had. Last year, like I said, last year will always be my favorite Midsummer just because of how victorious we were. But I take that as an outlier because that's not a normal Midsummer situation, and I hope it's one we never have again. So with that one out, I would say this one was definitely my favorite. I mean, I got to watch 2 men who I consider brothers take their folk builder oath. It was a blubbering mess, as I always am during those things. I got to meet Tyler and his boys. Nick Gunn was just a beast in the kitchen, and Ryan was by my side anytime I needed anything. He was right there to be found. You know, I had Tyler and Aaron, and it was fun because they all have kitchen experience. So we got to run it like a pretend little restaurant kitchen, and it made things work really well. We had a bunch of us brought our magic cards, and we got to play Magic the Gathering, which is like, you know, my little nerd plug. But it was so fun to be able to do something I enjoy with my folk and people who mean a lot to me. And you know, the biggest thing for Midsummer for me is that weekend is all about, I mean, that like week is all about sacrifice. You know, the days leading up to Midsummer, I went with Sheila. We went shopping, and I had to drive down to Marysville for that, which is almost an hour away, come back, do some mom stuff, pick up Nick Rice, drive him to the Hof, which is, you know, another hour and a half away, drive back home, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, go to work, get off work, come out to the Hof, and then just immediately start. And then staying up until 2-3 o'clock in the morning to spend time with the night owls, make sure they get some frith built, and then start prepping for breakfast the next morning. Me, Tyler, Nick, and David, we were in the kitchen at 2-3 o'clock in the morning making breakfast for the next day, and then go to sleep, wake up, do it all again the next day. Don't go to bed till 4 in the morning, and then fall asleep. Ryan was my savior and made breakfast that morning because I was just so exhausted from an entire weekend of fun activities. And I got to hang out with Kyle while everybody else was inside giving talks, and we ran children's stumble, which was so much fun. I love getting the children involved. I love seeing their grasp and their knowledge on the folk and the lore and the gods and all of that. Asking them to hail an ancestor, and them trying to really think about what an ancestor is and who they want to hail, and hearing them talk about the gods. And the third round, when they're wanting to toast everybody, they're all toasting their friends. They're like, hail my friends, or hail the AFA, or hail my mom. And it's just, that was like the best part. I think it's something newer that we've started doing at most events, is getting the children involved. And I have to say that is 100% without a doubt my favorite part. Sorry, that's her bottle. Having the kids learn and see their growth and see them light up with excitement when you call out three of the younger girls that is going to be horn bearer, and they get to have that responsibility, and they're not expecting it. And I called on I called on Ryan's middle child, his youngest daughter, to be a horn bearer for us, and she was like super excited, but she wasn't expecting it, and then 2 other of the girls who come around, they were just so happy to be a part of something. And you could see that we're laying the foundational groundwork for these kids to grow, and they are our next generation. So the fact that we're spending more time, watering those seeds is just amazing. And I love it. It's my favorite part of every event, but especially Midsummer, giving those kids a purpose within the event.
Awesome. Few things. First, I have been remiss. Apparently, I'm supposed to advertise some merchandise this evening. As you guys know, we're trying to figure out our store and just how we're doing stuff. As always, these pieces of merchandise come with caveat: get them while getting's good, because we don't know what we're sticking with or how long we're sticking with it. We're trying some different things out for stuff that we've got to go out of house to get done. So we've got this shirt. It's lovely. It's a classic design. You could see it on my tank top at the gym the other day, but only sort of, because the one I have is very old and faded. So this one is new and fancy looking. Nick, is this the product that we were selling? Is this one shirt, or do we have some other things?
Well, as it says, we have shirts, hoodies, we have ladies' shirts, and if
Okay.
you go right to Brandy, there might be stringers. I don't know.
Okay, so imagine other shirts and stuff where you go to the link to purchase this shirt. So I'm ridiculous and I'm not advertising it very well. We have fine AFA products for you. I will tell you this in complete seriousness. The shirts are really soft and nice. I've been really impressed with a couple of them that I've gotten. We've had some janky t-shirts in the past or whatever that are just, rough or whatever. These are really nice shirts. They're very comfortable and I enjoy them so far. So do go in and please support us. Any money that you do for these is going to a good cause to help us advance our mission and the mission of the ICEER. So appreciate that, and you'll get a cool shirt out of it, or hoodie. So one thing that always impressed on the back channels here, how we're able to get it. Sheila was talking about finding that altar stone when we found what would become Odinshof. And this is us there at that very beginning after doing that ritual, making that promise to try to make that into a reality and make that Hof. And this is, just shortly right on the tail of Midsummer, the Sunday after Midsummer of 2015. So there you go. It's a cool picture. Probably cooler to those of us that were there, but yeah, it was really, really special. Absolutely, the gods smiled upon us with that, and we've been so very blessed to have that Hof, and from it started everything else. Sheila talked about how they got one Hof, and didn't have plans for the other ones, but how we've been able to get so many in the past few years, 3 Hofs, and just, one of them was purchased in 2022. So it's 3 Hofs in 2 years. It was kind of amazing, but that's all facilitated. That first one was the hardest one. It's one of those things, as long as something's out of your grasp, that first person to break that record, that's what it takes. And then it's that much easier after that. And, Steve and Sheila and all the work they put in over the years trying to make a Hof happen. It takes forever to break that unbreakable barrier. But once you do, it makes that so much easier for the rest of us to come along behind and keep moving the ball forward. But it was such an accomplishment. It's one of those things. I remember reading some of the very first editions of the Runestone back in, I think the one I was reading was like 82 or 83. But about, any day now we're gonna get our Hof, and we're gonna get our at the time free assembly, AFA land and Hof, and it's gonna happen. Any day now we're on it, and that's the dream of everyone since, like I said, since at least the early 80s. I remember when I first got involved in Asatru in 2001, again, everyone everywhere was going to have these Hofs and make stuff happen. And there were some, modest like sheds and outbuildings on some people's property that kind of would serve the purpose of a Hof, and was, I guess, closer to what you'd call a stali in the old term. It was a worship space, and those are really cool, but it's a whole different thing to have something that's a recognizable house of worship that is a real deal Hof. And it's funny, it's kind of cool now that may not seem like such a big deal. It's always funny when new people come in, you're like, they don't know how hard it was to get here. They just, take it all for granted. But it's also really neat that we've been part of building that to where they can take that for granted. You guys have heard me talk about it a lot on here, but I'm going to keep doing it. one of the most significant moments of my life was watching my daughter play at the Hof, and like, no, this was the dream. And she's never going to know a world that doesn't have Hofs to our gods in it. And that all started at Odinshof. So we got a couple questions, not very many, guys. Ask your questions. We'd appreciate it. It will help us, I don't know, go in interesting directions, but we want a little bit deeper dive on the bus adventure. King of Gas Station Meats wants to know. All right, so I'm going to do something on the name there for a second. So I was on a AFA trip to Denmark and Germany way back when. We'd done some event stuff up in Denmark, and Sheila was with me, and we were in a Citroen minivan that I was able to drive for, which was awesome. I got to drive on the Autobahn on that trip. And as soon as we crossed into Germany, we stopped at this gas station, and it was awesome. Other people in the car with me did not appreciate my choice of snacks, but there was this, I don't know, something, it was kind of like a Slim Jim, but it was in like a bread-like substance. It was kind of like a little, like a long pig in a blanket situation at the gas station, and it was awesome. And that was probably my favorite of the gas station meats that I've had. So I figured I'd put it out there. What's up?
A kolache? That's a
no
Czech
Spreka.
thing, but it's kind of similar.
Kein Spreka. Yeah, so Gas Station Meats, sorry for the divergence, wants to know, what's the story behind the cool bus, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm not sure how far back to go, but the short of it is everyone's been talking for a while about getting a bus going down to Midsummer. Oh, if we had a bus, I could go. If I had a bus, I could go, and then they wouldn't go. And years of that went by, and I got tired of hearing it. So I went out and started looking at buses, and they were all exorbitantly expensive, so we decided to do it anyway. And I found this little 19-year-old who had a bus, didn't know what to do with it, couldn't drive the thing, didn't know how to fix it up, didn't understand any of the work she was trying to do on it. I think she was following some YouTube bus life trend and got in over her head. So she ended up going to sell it, and I was able to reach out to her within 6 hours of it being posted. I had contacted her within 18 hours. We had the bus, and financially, it was apprentice boat builder Aaron Simbeck and myself that split the bill. And then the trip itself down was partially funded by the Odinshof Order of Hitler, which is just a little fraternity. I'm not going to go into detail on it, but the short of it is it's made up of AFA members, not an AFA fraternity. So a little auxiliary. And with that, we were able to put together this trip. And so when we got it, it was completely gutted. There was no seating. It was pretty bare bones. So what we did was we grabbed some church pews we had absconded with the previous year for First Harvest Feast, and we took some of the surplus, we bolted it in, made it all nice. They're padded, so it is quite comfortable. Threw some storage in the back, got a PA system hooked up, so I even had a little mic. It was pretty fun. We got to do an impromptu Q&A to keep myself awake on the tail end. Did all sorts of fun little things on it. So that's kind of the story of the bus. I mean, I can go into more details about it if there's anything particular chat wants to know.
I think between me and Tyler and Ryan Skinner, there is no excuse for people to not come to Midsummer, because I will pick you up, Ryan will pick you up, or you can travel with Tyler and you can camp at the Hof, and your meals are paid for by the ticket. So realistically, the only out-of-pocket expense you have is how you get to California. Otherwise, we'll get you to and from the airport, or Ryan will pick you up if you meet him at the area and drive down to Midsummer with you. There's really not an excuse anymore.
And if I could piggyback off that, one of the cool things about this bus is we are leaving from Coeur d'Alene every year now. The cool thing about that is I got people coming from the West Coast of Washington, Far East Montana, Western North Dakota, got people coming up from Oregon, got people coming over from Utah. They're all converging in one central location. if you can't even manage to get to Coeur d'Alene yourself, someone can get you there to get on the bus. So there really is no excuse.
That's the thing. I just kind of want to point out all those people talking about, man, if only there was a bus didn't magically appear. It took a young Aryan man of ingenuity and stick-to-itiveness to have the desire to make a bus happen, and then to have the follow-through and the industriousness to actually make stuff happen. And I know that that sounds silly and goes without saying, but I think that sometimes, and this is kind of one of the purposes of this episode, and we'll be doing ones for the other Hof districts as well, give kind of an idea for folks who are listening, if they live in any of these, they're going to live in one of these districts, whatever district they find themselves in, to see that there's stuff going on around them, there's people out there, and how it happens. I think a lot of people reach out and want something very close to them. And every day we are one step closer to having something close to everybody. So much further than we were before. But the way that happens isn't me casting a spell from Reno and making it, pop out of the ground. What happens is somebody very much like every single person you see on this screen decided to step up as a party of one, or maybe one and their spouse or their girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever the case might be, and say, hey, let's start something. Hey, do you guys want to come meet up at the park? Hey, do you guys want to come over and have dinner? Hey, do you guys want to go get a beer and make something happen? In order for things to happen, it's going to take somebody out there to make it happen. And any of you listening can be the first person to do it wherever you're at. And if not, any of you listening can certainly help that person to make it happen, to make it thrive, and to make it successful. So I'd encourage anybody, if you're listening to this program and you find it interesting, if this is something you want to do, if you are a heterosexual white person that would like to build a relationship with your gods, the ICER, come home to the Asatru Folk Assembly. Check us out, runestone.org. We're able to make amazing things happen when we stand together. And that's what we'd love to do, and we'd love to bring all our folk home. So, yeah. Oh, and I suppose as good a time as any, Nick, if you could throw up a link to the wonderful slideshow you made of the Midsummer event. I suppose that picture's worth 1,000 words, and that's a bunch of pictures. So you do the math, but this gives you an idea of what it was like, and what you can experience when you come out and join us next year.
We had 103 people this year.
It's fantastic. Oh, we've got customer feedback over in the chat. The tall metal thingies are awesome. Apparently those are super high quality. So we sell tall metal thingies with Hof logos on them that you can put beverages in. That said, yes, I've learned it is called a tumbler, but they work really well. They're insulated good, and we've got good feedback. Honestly, we've got good feedback on all the products at the store that we're using. So it's cool stuff. We would appreciate, any help that way. And you guys have been awesome. Speaking of people being generous and awesome, while we've been talking, GW Farnsworth, who has been a frequent contributor on here in recent weeks, bought us 5 coffees. That's a $25 donation to the Asatru Folk Assembly. If you want to do that, you could put it in one of those tumblers and send us actual coffee, and it would probably be warm when it got here because they are high quality tumblers. But if you want to figuratively buy us coffee, the links are in the description to this video. And yeah, we appreciate you guys very much. There's a couple of other things. Somebody commented in the chat, Ryan, you guys got wild horses in Montana. And I suppose, Tyler, you might have some insight on Montana wild horses as well.
Over here in the west side of the state, it's a hard no. Unless they're breaking out of somebody's ranch or anything like that, we really don't have any wild horses over this way.
Do you have wild horses in your neck of the woods, Tyler?
If you're within a couple hours of me, they tend to pop up. They're mainly in North Dakota element. They like the canyons of the western part of North Dakota, but they do come into our area. Our area is the Badlands, North Breaks. Sounds way worse than it is. It's actually a beautiful place if you can survive the winter. But that was kind of the idea, is we don't really want people that can't survive the winter to come on out, because they usually have a lot of notions of eating extra frills. So -55 was this year's record. Normally -40, so it's a good place, but we do get wild horses through the area.
You want wild horses? You come out to Reno and give me half an hour. I will show you wild horses. We've got a ton of wild horses to the east of us, just about anywhere. Honestly, my wife was here. She'd know right the name of the neighborhood. There's a neighborhood kind of on the fringes of town to where it's very common to have wild horses just walking through the street. So we got a bunch of them out where I'm at. What else we got going on over here? We got somebody talking about how awesome the website is. Nick, you did an amazing job on the website and continue to do so. Thank you so much for your hard work on that.
Hey, Matt?
Yeah.
I'd like to do a little plug for
Go for it.
Daughters of Frigg. It is our ladies group at Odinshof. All ladies are invited to take part. We do have a MeWe group. We do First Friday for Frigg, and that's our little video chat we do. This was the brainchild of Olivia Sutherland, who would be on here tonight, but she is with family out in South Carolina, and they're heading back to California in the morning, leaving at 3 a.m. So there was no way for her to be on here, but she's a really lovely lady. Everybody who meets her just appreciates her sweet, wonderful, and gentle ways. She's just amazing. But she also helped us come up with what is our Hof flower and our saying, our 3 words that represent our Hof. Each of our Hofs were tasked to do this by Wit and Brandy Bassett. And we came up with a rose. When you see the video that I produced for the promotional video when we first had the Grange and we started raising money, you'll see that the rose that is still there was in bloom when we saw it. And so it was natural that in coming up with a flower for Odinshof that it would be the rose. What was really neat is that Olivia did a little bit of digging around and she came up with something called the Sheila rose in honor of me. And I truly appreciate that. And so we actually planted that at May Day. Or maybe it was a work weekend, but it was a couple of months back. We have the Sheila rose right next to, on the other side of the steps from the other large rose. But, and I'm sure that Nick can come up with it, but this shows the t-shirts that we have at our Hof with the rose on the front, and on the back are words that we came up with as the women of Odinshof, and what we see as our role when people meet us. There we go. Look at each of those. Yeah, Odinshof, Thorshof, Baldershof, and Njordshof. Excellent. They're all very similar. This is actually more of a charcoal gray, as you can see. But we came up with the words, which I think exemplifies who we are at Odinshof: generosity, joy, and resilience. And I really like the idea of resilience because we found that we are very adaptable and we can deal with change on a moment's notice. And we have a lot of strength because we work together so well. We have great teamwork, and we're growing our folk builder core, but we can always use more. If you are interested in becoming a folk builder in our district or any of the districts, reach out to the Gothi or Gidea, who is there. For us, also Nathan Erlinson is the head of the leads all the folk builders. And if you're interested, you could reach out to him as well, because he'd love to talk to you about it and tell you what's involved. But I think everybody here is doing it as a work of love. It is simply who we are and what we do. And we are better for it, for having wonderful, dedicated folk builders like you see here tonight But we have a very large district, as you saw at the very beginning. We could always use a few more folk builders to share the responsibilities, but also the joy we get here, and the difference we all make when we can reach out to our members and host events and all those things that are part of the role we play here. And we're all happy to be here. But again, folk builders, if this interests you, talk to any of the folk builders, find out about their experience, or maybe they'd even talk tonight about it and why they chose to become a folk builder, because that's pretty important. But we welcome you to step up and inquire about it. Thank you.
One of the really special things about the AFA is, Sheila mentioned that Olivia can't be here because her and her family are traveling in the Carolinas. They met up with other AFA members while they were out there, and seemed to have a great time with that. We saw a picture of them going out and having a meal. When you're part of the AFA, you got family pretty much everywhere you go, and if you're willing to drive an hour here or there, you do. And that's if you need something, if there's an emergency, but it's also if you're just traveling or you're moving to someplace new, or whatever the case might be, or you have a loved one somewhere that you want somebody to check on, or whatever it is. It's nice to know that you're never far from family when you're with the AFA, and that's really a special thing. Nick is quick with the pictures, which is awesome. They're there with folk builder Tyler Bethay and his lovely wife, and Witten Daniel Young and his wife Heather Young, folk builder Heather Young. And so Olivia's husband Brody just stepped up to be an apprentice as well. They're a little bit closer to the Bay Area. I wanted to kind of give people an idea of the spread of where we have folk builders in the district. Earlier, Tyler mentioned Aaron Simbeck, and he is in Puget Sound area, Washington. We've got also stepped up the Hof steward that Sheila talks so much about, who's done such a great job of beautifying and taking care of Odinshof. Dan Odom, he lives very close in the Brownsville area there. He has just stepped up to be an apprentice folk builder. And we also have Lou Nickerson down in the Tucson area of Arizona. So we've got a couple of folks that are not able to be here, but we do have coverage in those areas. And Nick is amazing. Look, he is a wizard. That was the screen I was looking on to like poke around and tell you who we had where. But Nick was able to pop that up. Nick, you're awesome. Thank you.
Map shows is that we need a Nevada folk builder, a Utah folk builder, a Colorado folk builder, a New Mexico folk builder, and a Wyoming and Oregon. That's just what it shows.
In Alaska and Hawaii, and we need one in Australia and New Zealand. We need one in various parts of all of those places. There's plenty of wide open space you can see on that map that doesn't have a folk builder in it. You could be in those spots. And you see little spots where people are overlapped, you can overlap as well. Many hands make light work. And so that's kind of a thing Sheila led into, and I think it's a good idea if we can go around. Kyle, can you tell folks a little bit about your experience as a folk builder and what kind of led you to folk building, and how's that been?
So folk building has been amazing. Like I say all the time, it honestly changed my life. It's made me a lot more patient man, a lot more understanding and caring person. But it was Midsummer 2022. I was outside smoking with Whit and Brandy Fassett, and we were just kind of talking. I was like, I think I might try folk building one day. And she's like, well, why not just do it now? So I was like, hey, I will. And went and talked to you, Matt, and went and talked to Sheila, and got right on it that day. And I don't know why I waited so long, for real. Like it's been one of the best experiences of my life.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Ryan, could you tell us a little bit about your experience as a folk builder and kind of what brought you to that?
Yeah. So I've been a member for a long time. When I first joined the AFA, I lived in Alaska. I moved down in 2021 due to a health issue. And the process of moving and getting my family reestablished to put us really close to the Hof is actually where I grew up. And so I got to go to more events. I got to see the people and interact more instead of being far away in the online space. And it really changed my life for the better. I've lost about 120 pounds since being down here. I have gotten healthier in every metric. And all those things culminated from having a good support structure that was in place from the AFA and a moral foundation, a moral pillar that I really looked up to. And when I got to a point where I was in good health and good financial standing, I wanted to give back to all the help, all the commitment, all the camaraderie, and the frith that was given by the AFA and our members. And so in believe it was March, Hexanoct, I asked Olivia Sutherland, Sheila McNallen, and Sierra, what's the process of becoming a folk builder? And from there, they threw me right into the fire. I got to contacting members, learning the ropes, and it really opened my eyes to what it takes to keep this rolling. And it was awe-inspiring for all the work that goes into it, the people that are committed to doing it. And at the time, I believe we only had 5 folk builders. Now I believe we're close to 8 or 9. It really brought it to my attention that the AFA really needed help for the Óðinshof district, and B, the people we currently have are such good mentors that it was a no-brainer. It was something that didn't know that I needed, but when I got into it, it became instantly a part of my life. I talked to my wife, said, "Hey, do you want to do this full time?" Like I was an apprentice. During Midsummer, I took my oath, and when I spoke with my wife, said, "I want to continue doing this for the rest of my life," and she totally agreed. The amount of effort we put in and the camaraderie we build is amazing. And so that being said, if you are in states that aren't near a Hof, if you're not in a place where they hold moots, contact a folk builder and see if you can make a moot for yourself, hold a moot for local people that are nearby. And when you build that small community, when you build the infrastructure for meeting people and seeing what we're all about, it really turns your perspective, and it helps all together, in my opinion. And so, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
All right. Sierra, what brought you to folk building, and how's that been? What do you got to say about your folk building experience?
Yeah, so I have been a folk builder for 4 years, I think. Yeah, 4 years. Shh. Sorry, my son put on my noise canceling headphones, so he can't hear me. So I've been a folk builder for about 4 years. I joined the AFA February of 2021, so it's been 3 years. I joined February 2021, and by May 2021, I have become an apprentice folk builder. I had decided that this is what I want to do. I want everybody to feel like, I want to help people feel what I feel when I go to the Hof. When I first stepped foot into the Hof, it was like I was home. And I know when I am home, hold on one second. Bjorn. When I am home, I have a responsibility, right? In my house, I have responsibilities. And so since the Hof feels like my home, I need to take on some responsibility here. It has been absolutely life-changing. I honestly think that if I wouldn't have become a folk builder, I don't know what I would do with myself. It has become a part of my everyday life. It's I mean, people say that it's hard work, and it is. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that it's like the easiest thing ever, but it just becomes second nature. It becomes a part of everything that I do. I'm constantly checking my emails. I'm constantly messaging the folk. Like, I have an iPhone, and I'm a Gen Z kid, right? So I doom scroll all day. So instead of doom scrolling on Facebook, I'm on MeWe, and I'm talking to my folk, and I'm knowing what's going on with them. And for the longest time, I would go up to Matt and ask him about somebody, and he'd say, well, who's that? And I would be able to tell him who they were, where they lived, facts about them, like what they were doing. And it was nice. It was nice to know that I could know these things about our folk. Okay, buddy, hold on. It was nice to know that I could know these things about our folk just off the top of my head and build those relationships. And so it's taught me discipline. It's taught me, it's taught me better organizational skills. It's taught me patience. It's taught me compassion. It's taught me understanding. Like, it has taught me so many things that I thought I already did well enough on my own, but being a folk builder has fine-tuned those things. My life used to be very hectic. Like, I would just kind of wing it, take it by the seat of my pants. But as a folk builder, you can't really do that. You have to sit down, plan things out. You've got meetings here, you've got this there, moots here, moots there. And it's brought a lot of structure to my life in a really good way.
All right. Tyler, what brought you to folk building, and what's been your experience thus far?
Yeah, so I got started in folk building due to an area falling apart. And it was one of those things when Idaho lost cohesion and they had a kingdom that just kind of crumbled. I was able to step up and drive over once or twice a month, depending on the month, and put it back together. So I saw a need and I filled it. And Idaho is now one of the strongest kindreds in the Northwest. It's the Northern Bastion kindred's going great. And the really nice thing about folk building is you get to build things, and then someone's going to step up and take over, so you don't have to worry about it. So Northern Bastion's being handled by Nick Gunn now. And so instead of having to drive 6 hours, which is now 8 now that I'm with Montana, every month to make sure it's good, Nick's got it down, and he's building Spokane up. He's building the areas north of Spokane up as well. And so he's doing a great job up there, which allows me to focus on other areas. So when I first started folk building, the district was not as cohesive as it was now. It's one of those things where a lot of people conceptually understand that going forward things will be better, but then when they look backwards, they wonder why things weren't as good. And there's just this disconnect where it's, of course, things weren't as good before if you're working on building it better always. So this constant path to victory, we see changes. One of the biggest changes in the Northwest is now we have enough leadership to cover the area, and that means we can start focusing on building the area into more of a cohesive unit. Because the reality is, eventually, that line, that march through all the Hof openings is going to lead its way to the Northwest. So, sorry, Matt, I'm building you a district when the time comes.
I hope so. I hope so. We've wanted to see that for a long time. We'd love to have a Hof up in the Northwest. And I mean, there's a little bit of time. That could be Bragi's Hof. We'll see. Ryan, what is other Ryan? What is your original Ryan? What is what brought you into folk building, and what's been your experience folk building so far? I think you talked about what brought you into it already a little.
Well, originally I was tapped on the shoulder by a couple of former folk builders who thought that I had the potential to do the job, and I mulled it over and kind of let it go for a bit. And then I believe it was a little while longer, I was tapped on the shoulder again by our founder and by Sheila, and told the same thing and said that they saw potential in me and that I could do the job, and I mulled it over again. And it took me a while, just based off of the nature of my career, the things that were expected of me in my personal life, being dropped off in wilderness areas, out of communication for extended periods of time. It was one of those things where I didn't want to take on the position initially, just based on an inability to be there, to be available. But after receiving the encouragement from Stephen and Sheila, I jumped on board and I did that. And at that time, we weren't nearly as online and on as many platforms and doing as much as we are now. I'm still, again, involved in very much the same career, but I'm no longer in that same capacity. I'm no longer dropped off into wilderness areas. I have connectivity, and most of the time I'm not a tech issue unless I am, and then I fall back on Nick Rice and Cliff, and they get me squared away for all my deficiencies. But I jumped into it basically at the behest of Steve and Sheila, and other people who asked me. My experience has been one of ups and downs. It's an extremely difficult thing to take on, but it's an extremely rewarding thing to take on. You see people come, you see people go, you see the high times and you see the low times. But all those high times, all the good stuff makes it far more worth it than any of the low times that we experience. To see people again, experience their first events, to see them at the Hof, to be worshiping our ancestral gods, to be taking part in our ancestral faith amongst their folk, their greater kin, that makes it all worth it. To see people come home is why we do this. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Excellent. So we are light on the questions. So everybody knows it does not have to be an Odinshof district specific question. You can ask us any of the rando questions that you ask normally. And we've just got a lot of different people to farm them out to or to get perspective on. So feel free to do that. Something that I did see from Casey. I don't know if you're still here, Casey. You said you were going to try and attend the Jackson County this year, but you're having health problems and short-term insurance is being a pain. If you are too unwell to attend, that's certainly understandable, and it's not going anywhere, and it'll be there for you when you're feeling better. If it's a financial issue or something else, Nick would be really happy to talk to you on the side and try to get that worked out so you can attend. So I'm not sure what's holding you back, but we'd love to see you in Jackson County if you can make it at Sigerheim. And I saw something just came through. So what does it take personally to volunteer for folk building, and how would one prepare? So I'm going to answer the first part, and then I want you guys to kind of think of what you would suggest is how one would prepare for it. So I have seen I promise this is meant as a compliment, but it starts out negative. So I have seen woefully ill-equipped people who are not at all good with technology, who have strange job hours, who are in different marginal circumstances in their lives, and quite frankly, who are not necessarily high-functioning individuals, but they had a lot of heart. And I've seen those people become amazing folk builders. I've also seen people with the best of circumstances, the most free time. They are just a computer whiz on all of that. They've got the most engaging personality and a $1 million smile, and they look like you want them on the poster, and they're like, have all the natural talent in the world, and they just don't care that much, and it doesn't work out. So what I would say a person needs to have the most And it depends on where we're all at different places in our journey home to wholeness, to health, and to our relationship with the ICER. But certainly the more devout you are in your practice of Asatru, the better you will be. The more you care about what you are doing and you feel the weight of responsibility to take ownership for the things that you're assigned or the things that you take on and say that you will do, having the ability to have the follow through and to care that stuff gets done. So the biggest thing is just, and it sounds so simple, but this is a volunteer position. And so it's not, the incentives of it are not as straightforward. And it's easy to slip into inaction or assuming somebody else to take care of something. But somebody who is self-motivated and feels the responsibility of making things happen. And if you want to do something and you're not getting answers, you're not, it's not happening, making it happen. If you have questions, asking the questions. If you want to do something, figure out how to do it. If you don't know how to do something, asking, because you're going to make damn sure it gets done because you are committed. That's what we need, is committed people who want to take responsibility and ownership of the duty of being a folk builder. That's the biggest thing that I would say you would need to have coming into it. Now, there's a lot that goes into folk building. A lot of it involves daily communication electronically with the other AFA leaders about a variety of issues, dealing with our membership database, dealing with membership dues, and all the things that aren't sexy or fun, but are what keeps the lights on and allow us to move forward. Some of the more, fun and things you'd see that have to do with it are hosting things. And hosting things doesn't mean something grand necessarily. If you can, fantastic. But it can be just meeting up with other members at some place you want to go already and spending an afternoon with them at a park or at a local bar or a local restaurant or going on a hike. It doesn't have to be a big extravagant event. But doing those things and doing them regularly, the regularity and consistency is probably the biggest thing. But if somebody wanted to be a folk builder, how would you suggest they prepare for the position, Sheila?
I think that a lot of people do have their heart in doing it, but they find that they're not into time management. They kind of wing it when it comes to scheduling things in their own lives. They kind of know how the routine works, but in folk buildings, it really takes being aware of how you're going to schedule your time, because we do have deadlines. So I would say that's something to really think about. How can you begin keeping track of what you do during the day when you've got free time where you could do something, make calls or get online and those kinds of things, which are very easy to do when it comes down to it. It's finding the time to do it and making the time and actually following through. So we all have that problem where we intend to do it. We don't quite get to it as soon as we want. But I think as time has gone on, the time management and keeping track, just have a notebook and write down, what you're doing, and keep a journal of once you start folk building, of what you're doing, who you're reaching out to. We also have other ways of doing it internally in the database and such as that. But I think that really can help someone be successful at folk building, is just being aware of how they use their own time as it is. Enough from me. Someone else.
All right. So, Kyle, what would you suggest someone does to prepare for the position if they want to do volunteer to folk build?
First thing I would recommend to somebody is, if they're married, is talk to their spouse, because it is a huge commitment to take. You miss some family time stuff, like being on here tonight. My wife and my kids are all downstairs. Well, they're watching this live now, but I'll be on phone calls when we're having movie nights because a member needs my help with something. It's a huge commitment that not just you take on, your family takes on. You might do the work, but your family is right there with you going through all of it. Another thing, like Sheila said, is do great with time management. I sucked at it at first. Sheila helped me out with the whole little notebook trick, and that has saved my butt so many times I can't even count them. And then get used to talking on the phone. It's a lot of talking on the phone with people, and you can't be scared to pick up a phone and just call somebody and be like, "Hey, how's it going? How's your day? Just wanted to talk to you real quick." And then be willing to be on social media and have your face out there, not to hide. You have to be willing to be the face of the AFA, especially if you're in a small state where there isn't a HOF.
Absolutely. I think those are really good things. I think the bit about your family being on board is huge. I've seen that be a huge asset when that's in place, and I've seen that be a huge detriment when it's not. So it's a really good point. Ryan, new Ryan.
All right, so I would have to say that the first thing is you're never going to be perfectly prepared for taking on new responsibilities. If you have that time available, if you have that drive and willingness to volunteer yourself for something greater than yourself, then the time is now. The time to get all that set aside and put something forth in your life that actually means something is now. In terms of, like, if you have a family, it does cut into your family time a little bit, but not that much. Let's just take our Odinshof tasks into account here. We do about 15 to 20 calls in a month. You can do this split between all the folk builders that are currently here, and you have a month period to get it knocked out. We have a requirement to write articles, and it doesn't have to be like a 5-page article. It can be just a paragraph about something that you accomplished at a moot or something that's Asatru related. Make sure you get Gothar approval on stuff that deals with the religious and spiritual aspects of that. But it's not as daunting as one would suspect. And especially if more people volunteer for it, if more people step up, it becomes a lot easier. Like Sheila says, many hands make light work, and it's very rewarding. You get to meet a lot of people. You get to see where their walks of life are. You get to hold events. And especially if you're in a state where you get to go to a HOF and you get to be a part of the event planning, it's incredibly rewarding. You get to see how the sausage is made, and it is something that I want to do forever. So don't deter yourself. It's just, I would say it's kind of akin to having a kid, and there's no perfect time, but if you want it, do it. So just make sure that you put your heart and soul into it, just like a kid. So that's my 2 cents on that.
That's a thing. I'd like to just kind of throw this out there. If you're, there is a reason that we have an apprenticeship process. When you take your oath, you're making a commitment to stick it out and to do this long term, even when it's difficult. But the apprenticeship process is for you to feel it out and get an idea whether it is something that you want to spend your life doing. And so that gives you some time to kind of feel that out. And it's really easy to talk about it and think about it in theory. And sometimes in practice, it might be different than you think. In both ways, you might think that it sounds, really difficult, and then you sign up and you do it and you love it. So that gives that opportunity. So there is that there, everyone here is talking about things to be prepared for and some of the difficulties involved. And I'm glad they are, and they should be, because, that's what we're talking about. It's what you would need to do to be prepared for it. But then again, man, that was one of the best things I ever did with my life. And it's why I'm here. So many of us, so many of my very best friends, it changed their life, being an active part in making this happen and leading the charge to bring our folk home to our native faith, to our gods, to the Aesir, reforging that relationship after so long. We're still in a time where you have an opportunity to be such a huge part of building that and building that legacy going forward. It's a really special opportunity. There's a lot of gravity to it, but you got to love it to be good at it. And it's got to be something you're willing to put your heart into. Old Ryan, what would you say folks should do to prepare?
First and foremost, I would say don't be afraid. We have a lot of people out there, and this isn't folk builder specific, but we have a lot of people, members, and even people on the periphery who very much enjoy what we're doing, want to be members, but they're afraid. They're afraid to join. They're afraid to step up. Whether that be doxing or being public, whatever it is, but be prepared to put your face out there. You put your face out there, you put your name out there, your real name. I've never used a pseudonym. I've never not used my own picture. You are the face of the AFA. For better or worse, you are the tip of the spear. You're putting yourself out there, and we are building the AFA. We're building our community. So don't be afraid. Get yourself up. Whatever kind of resolve you need to get into yourself, do it. If you're going to be a folk builder, you have to be all about it. You can't use a fake name. You can't use a fake persona. You got to be you. Be you. You represent you. You represent the AFA.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that not reluctance, but the full-throated, like, hey, I'm proud of this. I'm proud of who I am and what I do. Putting your face, putting your name behind it, and being comfortable standing behind it is a huge part of it. So that's definitely something to be prepared for. I'd like to also point out that New Ryan bought us 5 coffees. That's $25 donation to the AFA. We appreciate that so much. Thank you. Tyler, couple of things. We have a question in the queue, and in case they run off, when is the next Frere's Harvest Feast? And while you get that, also, what would you suggest somebody do to prepare for folk building if they wanted to volunteer that way?
Gotcha. So First Harvest Feast is going to be September 20th through the 22nd. Tickets will be on sale soon. It was a great event last year. We had Steve and Sheila McNallen come out. We had a lot of locals who put a lot of work in getting it ready, and the venue was a little under what it could have been. It was a little underdeveloped from what we had been used to, but it was the first year we had done it on my property. It was year one for the homestead, so there's a lot that had to go into it. We did most of our event under a tarp because a rainstorm came in, but we were unexpected. September's usually a beautiful month, but rain came in and almost washed us away when we didn't have a finished building to do the event. And this year we have a roof, so it's already going to be better than last year. And there's been a lot more changes that have happened to the property that you just have to come out and see it. So hopefully that answers the when. And you'll have to forgive me for plugging it a little bit more than I could have, but it's my baby. It's my pet project every year, and you guys should come out and see it. As far as preparing to be a folk builder, the number one thing is developing willpower. And I say developing because it is a skill that is developed over time. I'm going to take this and run with it. So forgive me, bring me in if you have to. But really cool thing about willpower is it is a muscle that you can train. It is something that is metrically observable. So the AMCC, the anterior mid-cortex of your brain, it grows when you do things that you specifically don't want to, but think you need to. And that's the formula for growing willpower, doing things you don't want to, but think you need to. And if you do that, that little bit of your brain gets a little bit bigger, get a little sharper, and you have more willpower for the next time. And that's all you do. It's strength training, just like anything else. And if you develop that willpower, when the task comes around that you don't want to do, whether you're not a social media guy or you're bad with tag or you're scared of your own shadow, let alone talking to group people, groups of people. That's it. That's all you need to do. Develop the willpower and do the thing you don't want to do, because I guarantee the rest of it is well worth it. There's going to be times folk building that everything's going smoothly. It's simply checking boxes and taking time and doing something you're passionate about. And there's other times that are going to come up where it tests you. When you have members come to you and spill their heart out about all the things going wrong in their life, and they're looking to you to put it back together, it's taxing, but it's worth it. Being able to be that guy or that gal for that person makes all the difference in the world. The thing is, it always balances. We've had times where the region has felt like it's in turmoil, or members' lives have fallen apart, and they want to take it out on the people around them. You got to rein them in and go, look, I get things are hard. Well, let's build it better. Let's not take it out of the people. And some of the hardest things are deaths. You get attached to people, and then people do what they do. They die. Everyone gets old. Everyone's got a time to punch out. And it's hard to get to know dozens of people really, really well, and then a few of them disappear here and there, and you just got to be good with that. We lost a good guy up in our area. I talk about him frequently because I do believe his name should live on. It's Alan Wittenberg. We were there for his funeral. We as the AFA did his funeral, and we were able to do that because we had people local. That doesn't happen if you don't have folk builders, if you don't have Gothi. So you have to be able to have people where you need them, and it only happens when you step up. And so as much as it is hard doing a wayfarer blow for someone who knows they're dying, scared of dying, but faces it bravely, you also then get those moments where someone comes up to you, they lean in and they get all excited. They go, hey Tyler, I think the wife's expecting, and I really want you to be there for the naming ceremony. Can you show up? And you get people come up to you, and after an event like this Odinshof, I had 2 different guys take different moments on the way back at gas stations come up to me and goes, I wasn't sure, but I felt it there. It's real. And being there for the it's real moment is worth everything. So all I can say is, you are on the fence of folk building, you've already shot yourself in the foot by waiting, because those moments are beyond worth it.
That's, I think, a really important thing that Tyler pointed out. Sometimes you just got to jump. Sometimes you've got to make that leap and try something that you should do, but you're not comfortable with. It's how we all grow as people. And when I look back at my life at the times I've done it, there's very few times that I regret it, and a whole lot of times that has quite literally made me the man I am today, and I wouldn't trade him for anything. Taking a jump into trying something you're not comfortable with that you should do, it gives you the opportunity to be, part of where the magic happens. He mentioned it hurts when you're dealing with people who, and you get this as a folk builder, but you get it more so as a Gothi because you're really in on a lot of the counseling, and you can do that if you build friendships. But our Gothar do this a lot. I don't think people realize it because it does take a toll when you're counseling people at their very worst. But here's the thing. All of those things happen. The reason they don't hurt your feelings in your normal life is because you're aloof to them and don't know about them. When yeah, it hurts, but you get a chance to be there and be that somebody and be part of helping somebody who's in a bad spot have that spot be a little bit brighter and a little bit better. And the exact same way, when somebody's celebrating something amazing, rather than kind of hearing about it through the grapevine, you get to be there and help make it happen. And the times that you can be instrumental in making that happen or facilitating, maybe because of an event you hosted or a call you answered that nobody else did, or, people that you got together, you see those people starting a family and, get married or have a baby or do anything great with their life, or, you see them across the country become a folk builder and do this. Those are huge things. If you're part of bringing someone home to our gods, that's that's amazing. It's tremendously rewarding, and it's not something that you're going to really feel the way that the rest of us do until you have it happen. But it's a big deal. So another question we've got: what was the best food/meals served at one of the events at Odinshof? Sheila, in your recollection, what is one of your favorite things at an Odinshof event?
I don't recall. I mean, our meals are really phenomenal. We always have lots of food. We have a wonderful member who's been with us for decades now, Newt, and Newt will always bring something unique in his crock pot. It might be buffalo heart or ox stew or something like that. And it's always a novelty, and people love seeing what he does. And he does it. It's all from the heart. And we have people like that who you say, never mind, you don't need to bring something, but he always does. And he always brings meat. And so we've got this, it really helps build the frith of our meals by having people contribute. We have wonderful meat dishes, of course, but we tend to try to do the cheaper cuts, of course, because we're serving anywhere between 30 adults typically on a monthly event and 15 kids to Midsummer, which was actually 106 people. And so as much as we'd like to do a lot of meat, we do wonderful turkeys. I'll say that we do in November at Feast of the Inheriar. We always do our Thanksgiving at that point. I guess that would be one of the best because it's very traditional for people who don't have family to go to. We make sure that they have a nice Thanksgiving dinner with us.
Ryan, can you think of a particularly good thing that you've had at Odinshof?
Well, yeah, I can. I'm always gonna plug. I bring venison chili at least once a year, so I think that's one of the better ones. And
That's
speaking
biased,
on,
something that you didn't produce.
oh, okay, all right. So actually, yeah, we did a ham, honey glazed ham, for Midsummer for one of the meals, and a salad. I've been kind of on a little bit of a diet recently, and so I relied on some of the high protein meals, and the ham that Sierra, Nick Gunn, and the others cooked in the kitchen was actually really really good. So I would have to say that the best in my memory is the last one. So
All right, so it's hard because eventually stuff runs together. Somebody, and I know I've asked before and I forget, everybody's looking for some kind of awesome homemade answer, and I may have some of those too, but everybody lately is bringing these like buckets of frozen eclairs that are awesome, and I love those every time, and they're amazing. So yeah, those are super good. Thank you to everybody, whoever brings those, and I apologize because I know I asked and I forgot the answer. Newt stuff's always good, but as we do to make sure all of our people are fed, I'm always the last one that gets to eat. So I don't always get stuff that Newt brings, but he brings really cool stuff. There may be some left by the time I get there if it's super spicy, because he has a tendency to bring the heat in some of them. At Midsummer, Sierra's pasta thing was awesome. Those were delicious. I thought that was like particularly standout good. Crystal made some like some really simple like ham and cheese sliders that were just amazing one time, and I literally think I ate 16 of them, and they were awesome. Yeah, we gotta be economical about cuts, like we're not serving up ribeyes to everybody, but I've had some really good tri-tip there. The Thanksgiving that Sheila talks about, that's always good. If we can get stuff, especially if it's, off of whenever it is, the Feast of the Inheriar is earlier in the month, but it's typically a Thanksgiving kind of meal. But when everybody's doing the corned beefs. I've had some really good corned beef there, and I look forward to that. Corned beef's amazing. So in the spring, corned beef's really good that we had there. Specifically this last time, I was really excited we had some. So yeah, lots of good stuff. Sierra popped on just in time. Not
Popped on.
okay. So
this.
this is okay. Because you produce so much of it, I'm not going to disallow stuff that you've made, but include something that wasn't from Sierra also, please. Go.
Okay. So I think like the favorite thing that I made so far was last Midsummer. I relied heavily on pork because it's cheap, and I made some just super good like pork loin that I turned into basically pork chops. That was really, really good. So sweet, so tender. But I would have to say, being in the kitchen, props to Crystal, because she went above and beyond for you guys, like way more than I would ever be able to do, making homemade spatzel and all this stuff. But I would have to say she made a paprikash dish one time. That was so good, but it was very labor intensive, so I haven't attempted it. I don't think I could do it nearly as good as her, but her paprikash was amazing. But I jumped on because I wanted you guys to know I'm here watching you, so watch your answers. All I got.
Okay. All right. Well, appreciate that. If any of you guys, the rest of you guys are not as, Ryan, you ate there for a long time. I suppose you warrant consultation on this. Remember anything particularly delicious you ate at Odinshof? Old Ryan, not new Ryan.
I would say probably the pig that we did in the ground. I think that's a standout meal that we did when we slaughtered a pig and did an entire pig in the ground. That was a fantastic meal. Worked out really well.
Excellent. So our next question is, and I guess everybody doesn't have to, but speak up or put your hand up or whatever. But did any of the folk builders on ever have any doubts about their ability to be a good folk builder, either while they were an apprentice or while they were oathed?
Can I jump on?
Of course you can.
Just because I'm going to have to hop off in a second. Sure. I get those doubts a lot, especially because we have such a strong team of folk builders, like in Odinshof district, but especially Odinshof specifically. Like Olivia Sutherland is such an amazing folk builder, and Ryan was an amazing apprentice, and I'm sure he's an amazing folk builder now that he's taken this oath, but for those to be my teammates, right, I don't feel like I could ever live up to the potential that they have set forth. And so it causes a lot of doubts, but I have to remind myself that we're all great in our own ways. Olivia does things that I could never do, and I do things that Olivia probably could do, but you know what I mean? Like we all have our different strengths, and I think that's part of why we work so well together, is we're all amazing at different things. So when I get those doubts, I just have to remind myself of where my strengths are and don't compare myself to other people, because where Ryan is excelling and I may not be, I'm still doing okay. I'm still doing good. I just, maybe not as amazing as Ryan at it because that's his strong suit. So those doubts definitely come about quite frequently, but it's just remembering that, you've got this, you can do it. And when it gets hard, I've got a great team that I can rely on to help lift me back up.
I would say that on the macro, I don't really have any doubts about folk building, but on the micro, there are times where you don't know what to say to someone. You don't know how to go about, especially when you're friends with someone. You don't know how to go about going up to them and going, hey, that behavior is not going to work. You're going to have to adjust course. It's the little moments like that that can provide some level of doubt, but I think once you just dive in, it sorts itself out pretty easily.
I would have to say I haven't ran into many situations. I haven't been doing it very long, but a lot of the times when you're reaching out to people, sometimes they're in good situations in their life, and a lot of times they're not. And being able to just listen and hear their story and be supportive where you can, but also be willing to direct them in the right direction for Gothar support. I've had a lot of moments where I sat in the chair and like just reflected off the conversation that I just had, and was like, I'm glad that we're reaching out to these people. I'm glad that we're interacting, because I don't think a lot of people don't have a lot of interaction to let these things out, or at least get them on the table so they can be fixed. And so I'm not in terms of doubt, but in terms of a little bit of hardship, it can be rewarding but taxing mentally a little bit too. So that's what I got.
Well, I think you touched upon something really important there, is that people don't have a lot of outlets to discuss these things. And I think the biggest thing that a member could do to get the most out of the AFA experience is show up to events. I think it's one of the things that we talk about, all the things we offer. We have plenty of chats online. We have the academy. We have the prison ministry. We have all of these wonderful places, these hofs. But the meat and potatoes is when you get in person. You have these one-on-one conversations. You get to know these people. Members, meeting members, walk away friends, and eventually become family. And that's the core advice I can give any member, is getting out in person to events, because that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. What else we got? So part of my practice is reading every morning with a cup of coffee. I am reading Eric the Red saga right now. What is everybody reading right now that's Asatru related from Scott Free? Sheila, what are you reading currently that's Asatru related?
I am reading and tapping into various versions of the Volsunga saga, Sigurd's story, and I feel I want to integrate that into Sigurblot. So I'm really focused on it, and I'm going to come up with ways that can be interspersed with different parts of our celebration that we all celebrate a week and a half out at Odinshof. So I've got a beautiful version here that I really like. It's kind of old text, very tiny print though. It requires using glasses to read that one. But this one is Volsunga Saga, the story of the Volsungs and Nibelungs. And it was done by William Morris, who wrote like 1,000-line poem about it back in the 1880s, I think, or 1900. Very well known for doing that story. So I just don't know it well enough, and I've been taking notes and doing all that.
All right. Kyle, what are you reading that's Asatru related?
Right now, I'm currently rereading the Poetic Edda. I've got 5 different translations at my house, and just trying to go through all of them and find differences.
All right. New Ryan, what are you reading?
Right now, I'm reading Fafnismal is the saga I'm reading right now. I'm not too far into it, so I can't give much in quotes, but it's definitely interesting. Sigurd and Rain, it's just definitely one.
I am reading Elder Gods by Stephen Pollington. I was at an AFA event, I want to say 2012 Midsummer, that Stephen Pollington came out actually, and was when he released the book. And I had an opportunity to get one then, but I was too cheap and I didn't. So I got one much later, and I am just now getting to read it. It's awesome. It's a really good book. I'm reading it slowly because I got a lot of distraction and other stuff going on, but I'm getting a lot of really, really good information that he points out about Asatru practice in Anglo-Saxon England. So it's really, I don't know, it brings up a lot of things that I haven't seen in other sources. So that's very nice. Tyler, what are you reading that's Asatru related?
Yeah, so currently I'm going through the bibliography and going through all these sources from President Kershaw's, the one I got out in the Indo-Germanic Mannerbund. So I've read that, and now I'm going through the bibliography. It's mainly just a bunch of research notes. It's getting a little pedantic, but it's a worthy effort, I hope.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you guys coming on this evening. I like this. I think it's a good program. I think it's good to have you all on here. We've got a fantastic team in the Odinshof district, and I am very honored to have you guys doing what you do for us. So thank you guys. I appreciate you carving some time out of your night to be with us. Thank you everybody in the audience for your questions, for your being here and listening and sticking with this show for, what is this, 105 episodes so far. I appreciate that. Thank you everybody who donated. Really appreciate you guys' generosity. With that, we'll do some more of these for the different districts. Wittens Fawn and I will be on next week to do the Lay of Hymir. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Until then, hail the Aesir, hail the folk, hail the AFA, and remember, victory never sleeps.
Good night.
Good night.